At its peak, Nokia was the biggest phone company in the world. Millions of people had one. But just a few years later, Nokia would almost disappear from the phone business. So how did one of the biggest companies in the world fall so far? To understand that, we have to go back to 1865. Nokia started in Finland, long before anyone was thinking about mobile phones. The company made paper at first, and over the years it moved into different businesses. It made rubber products, cables, electronics, and eventually got into telecommunications. This is where things started to get interesting. Nokia saw that mobile phones could become a huge business. So instead of treating phones like a small side business, the company started putting a lot of money and effort into them. And it worked. During the 1990s, mobile phones were becoming more popular around the world, and Nokia was right in the middle of it. The company made phones that were simple, reliable, and easy to use. Then came some of its most famous phones. The Nokia 5110 became a huge hit. Then came the Nokia 3210, which became one of the most popular phones of its time. And of course, there was the Nokia 3310. People loved these phones because they could take a beating, the battery could last for days, and they were simple to use. And then there was Snake. For many people, Snake was their first mobile game. Nokia wasn't just selling phones anymore, it was becoming a global giant. By the late 1990s, Nokia had become the biggest mobile phone company in the world. Millions of people were buying their first mobile phones, and Nokia was one of the biggest names in the market. The company had everything: a huge customer base, a strong brand, popular products, and billions of dollars in sales. It looked like Nokia was going to dominate mobile phones for years. But there was a problem. The phone business was changing. Phones were starting to become more than just something you used to call and text people. The internet was growing quickly. People wanted to use the internet on their phones. They wanted better screens, better software, and more things they could do with one device. And then, in 2007, Apple showed the world a very different kind of phone, the iPhone. Nokia was about to find out that being the biggest phone company in the world didn't mean you were ready for the future. And that's where the real story begins. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone, and it changed what people expected from a phone. The iPhone had a large touchscreen, a web browser, and apps. It didn't look or work like the Nokia phones people were used to. At first, Nokia wasn't too worried. The company was still selling millions of phones around the world. But the problem wasn't just Apple. Google was also working on Android. Soon, more companies were making smartphones that could run apps and connect to the internet. The phone business was changing very quickly, and Nokia was struggling to keep up. One of Nokia's biggest problems was its software. Its phones were still good at making calls and sending messages, but the software wasn't as easy to use as the new smartphone systems. Nokia had its own system called Symbian, but it was becoming harder to compete with Apple's iPhone software and Android. The company knew it had a problem, but Nokia was a huge company, and huge companies can be slow to change. There were already millions of Nokia phones being sold. There were thousands of employees. There were teams working on different products. Changing everything wasn't simple. Then, in 2010, Nokia brought in a new CEO named Stephen Elop. He knew Nokia needed to make a big change. In 2011, Nokia announced that it would move away from Symbian and use Microsoft's Windows Phone system instead. It was a huge decision. Nokia was basically betting the future of its phone business on Microsoft, but the plan didn't work as hoped. Windows Phone struggled to attract enough customers and developers. Meanwhile, Apple and Android continued to grow. This made things even harder for Nokia. People were buying iPhones and Android phones, while fewer people were choosing Nokia smartphones. Nokia's phone business started losing money, and the company that had once dominated the market was now trying to catch up. Then came another problem. Nokia had spent years building one of the strongest phone brands in the world. But now, people weren't just choosing a phone because of the brand. They were choosing the software, the apps, the camera, and the whole experience. That was a major change. Nokia was still making phones, but the market had moved on. By 2012, Nokia's position had become much weaker. The company was cutting jobs, closing locations, and trying to reduce its costs. And then Microsoft made a move that changed Nokia forever. In 2013, Microsoft agreed to buy Nokia's phone business. The deal was completed in 2014. The company that had once been the biggest phone maker in the world was no longer in control of its own phone business. But the story wasn't over yet, because Nokia itself was still alive. It just had to figure out what it would become next. By 2014, Nokia was no longer making phones the way it used to. Microsoft had bought its phone business, and the Nokia name had lost much of its power in the smartphone market. For a company that had once ruled the phone world, this was a huge change, but Nokia didn't disappear. Instead, the company started focusing on other parts of technology. Nokia became more focused on telecommunications equipment, the technology that helps mobile networks work. It also bought companies that helped it grow in this area, and slowly, Nokia started building a new business. It wasn't trying to be the company that made the phone in your pocket anymore. It was helping build the networks that connect those phones. This was a very different Nokia from the one people remembered, but the story of Nokia is bigger than just what happened to one phone company. Nokia didn't fail because it suddenly stopped making good products. The bigger problem was that the phone industry changed. People stopped caring only about battery life, strong phones, and simple menus. They wanted apps. They wanted the internet. They wanted better cameras, better screens, and software that could keep improving. Apple understood this, Google understood this, and Nokia was too slow to make the change. The company had been incredibly successful with the old way of doing things, and sometimes success can make it harder to change. Nokia had the customers, it had the money, it had talented employees, it had years of experience, but none of that mattered if the market was moving in a different direction. That's the biggest lesson from Nokia. Being the biggest company today doesn't mean you'll still be the biggest tomorrow. Technology can change incredibly fast, and if you don't change with it, someone else will. Nokia went from being the phone company almost everyone knew to losing its place in the phone market in just a few years, but it didn't completely disappear. The company found a new path and is still a major name in telecommunications today. And that's what makes the Nokia story so interesting. It isn't just a story about failure, it's a story about how quickly business can change. Nokia once ruled the phone world. Then the smartphone arrived, and everything changed.